So, Module 27 launches today, in about 3 hours if we exclude maintenance time, which will probably add to that. The devs have finally posted their patch notes, their update list, and for this module, it's particularly lengthy. So let's have a quick read through it, and I'll point out some highlights that I think are most notable. Again, it's Module 27, so a bunch of new stuff like a campaign and adventure zone, the new trial, a new lockbox. I'll cover a video on that and test it with opening it and checking out the new companion and mount. New battle pass we can just check out, a Boon update and paladin updates. Some updates to damage floaters and queue management. Basically, you can see all 10 people in your queue. On the left side there, as you can see, you can only see team debuffs, not their buffs, unfortunately. Damage floaters do look a little bit different. You will now see like whether you've crit, deflected, or dealt combat advantage all at once. So the sword icon is combat advantage. The lightning bolt is a critical hit. The broken arrow is a deflect. But we go to the release notes. A bunch of adjustments there with the campaigns and adventures. Just some minor adjustments and fixes. There will be a last chance vendor for the Masquerade of Liars up until November the 16th. And then there are some combat and power adjustments. So all the threat items right here that say they gave like plus 15% threat, plus 10% threat, they've all been changed and they'll basically give plus 100% threat now to your base, as we've covered in all my previous updates to tank threat. You can check those out. Sentinel, Vanguard, and then the Justicar, all three classes. The boons have been updated a bit there as well. You can have multiple different tier 5 and master boons now. It just costs you a bit more. Bloodlust was changed up a little bit to make it so the target takes up to 3% more damage. And otherwise, then the whole tank threat baseline rework. Everything that did not have increased threat has now had their threat generation roughly tripled. A bunch of powers have made it so that they'll actually grant crowd control immunity. The block, unfortunately, has been changed so that you will not gain action points as quickly, so animation cancelling won't be as rewarding for generating action points. The block and the shield priority, basically your block will go before your shield, which is, in my opinion, a good thing. It's always worked like this for the paladin, just not the other two tanks. You can basically choose to block the damage, or you can just not block and reduce your shield instead. The slam and rush powers were updated a little bit to be more usable, and then shield replacement. So a smaller shield will not replace a bigger shield. That's just it. It will not refresh the timer or anything. So once that bigger shield is gone, you'll need to place a new shield. I don't really see it as a great change, but yeah, we'll see how it is. You may very well end up experiencing people dying because their shield drops off at just the wrong moment. There was a whole bunch of changes to the paladin. Again, I discussed this in previous videos. Just a bunch of aura buffs here they go through. Some very nice improvements there. If you're struggling in threat, then on the Justicar, you can slot in your Aura of Valor and you should not have any trouble. Otherwise, intimidating presence on the Justicar path, the tank, has been reworked and it's now much more viable. You can use it and get your maximum survivability when you're in your Divine Palisade, so you don't have to worry too much about that. You just have a bit less survivability when you're within your Divine Champion, but you will generate high threat damage to nearby enemies. And otherwise, on the Oathkeeper Paragon, basically the base heal has been increased by about 20%, but the shields have remained about the same. The Bond of Virtue encounter has been changed to it will now actually heal people, so that's nice. You can use that as a backup if you need, just to top people off. Other than that, just a few minor adjustments here or there. With the Cleric, an unfortunate nerf to Healing Word has basically made it no longer count as a single target heals for items that would trigger it. Fighter has been updated a bit here as well. You have a bunch of at-will changes there, just some magnitude increases. On the Vanguard path, some updates here with their magnitudes as well. and phalanx made so that it should properly apply CC immunity. With the barbarian, also some at-will changes there. Change to Trample of the Fallen feat, which is a little bit of a nerf to the barbarian DPS. And then some changes here to the Blade Master Paragon, like Battle Rage has been adjusted a little bit. Hidden Daggers have been reworked. Axe Storm been more usable. Relentless Speed feat also becoming more usable at a 15% proc rate. Bit of a damage increase here on Indomitable. Most people still use Bloodletter as it's kind of better. And then the Sentinel Path, a whole bunch of changes here as well. Just with their Unstoppable, will now have a 60% absorption ratio even if you're blocking. And you'll also gain 15% critical avoidance. That's a nice boost. And otherwise, Primal Fury has been updated, so it will immediately end Unstoppable when you use it, which is a nice utility. And then its minimum magnitude's gone up to 200, but they did decrease its maximum a bit just so it wasn't like too overpowered in terms of threat when you could make the most of it. Otherwise, a bunch of minor adjustments here, basically making Barbarian overall more usable, more viable. You can have team support with your Inspiring Bravado, increasing all allies' hit points by 15% for 10 seconds. Pretty good for mitigation checks. And yeah, you can read through the more details if you wish, but overall, Barbarian Tank will be a lot easier to play. And you can look forward to a build from me for that if you are so interested. For the Warlock, a very good update there finally with Blades of Vanquished Armies. Its criticals will no longer be affected by the targeted player's crit avoidance, and that's the same with the Gates of Hell. And for the healer side, the Vampiric Embrace, Soulstorm and Revitalize shields, the Hell Pact feat will increase the shield size up to 65% instead of just 50. There were some slight companion adjustments. The Grill Master will actually give movement speed. The Rust Monster's damage output gone up by approximately 30%, and the Swashbuckler approximately 20%. Don't see them as becoming that great, just minor increases to their damage. Insignia bonuses, be aware that Tactician's Restoration has been renamed to Trainer's Restoration. Lionheart's will be more reliable. It will actually more frequently check what your health level is. A lot of the time it was just delayed, like you'd fall below that hit points and you could just end up dying and it not even triggering because of the time it took to trigger. With enemies and counters, just some adjustments to Lair the Mad Mage, Mana Coins Bank Heist, Castle Ravenloft, making it a little bit easier there. And with the Demon Web Pits, very importantly, Orcus should no longer cast a devastating Finger of Death at a non-tank player. This is finally a fix to that. People have been asking for it ever since day one. With items and economy, the Mensa Brands and Elite Sigils, the cap has gone to 2,000 from 500. Good. With Masterworking, your Mensa Brands and Masterwork materials will now have a +1 designation and should properly increase focus. It should help a bit. With those of you who have the Masterwork set, the Speedy Alacrity and the Aggressive Alacrity will now refresh all stat buffs consistently. They weren't for like a recharge speed on the Scintillant set. Those of you who had the Reanimated Chariot, the thing that was actually affecting it was the Witch's Broom mount. If you had that, you couldn't equip it. The Owlbear figurine been updated, now has a 60-second cooldown rather than 1 minute and can now properly critically hit. The Marilith Mask, Jewel of Marilith and the Sash of Marilith should actually now properly drop from the Demon Web Pit's Advanced Dungeon. My oh my, they did not before. But they did drop from the bosses as I've tested. But that will probably make them even cheaper. With the Zen Market, there'll be a new category for battle passes. It'll be within the campaign category, just with appropriate subcategories. And that is really about it with regards to all the most notable changes with the patch notes of Module 27. Pretty extensive if you're very interested in to see what actually changed with your class. I highly recommend reading through the patch notes for yourself or just watching the videos where I covered them. I've got pretty much everything that they have listed here. Massive thank you again to all these channel members for their extra support, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.